Hello and welcome to what is this, the fourth episode? I guess it doesn't really matter.
The fourth episode.
NoCB, a grand strategy podcast where we talk mostly about the games developed by Paradox Development Studio and the wonderful community around them. I am your host, TJ Hafer, and Father Loris is not with us right now, but this week we are joined by Rose.
Hello.
And by Lambert.
Hello there.
And today, this is our book club episode. We're going to be discussing one of the great works of modern Swedish literature, which is the Europa Universalis dev diary for the 14th of January. But before we get to that, we have some less meaty dev diaries to talk about, and we're going to be starting...
But that doesn't mean they're less interesting.
True. Very true.
Cool.
So we'll be starting with Crusader Kings 3, which this is indeed a very interesting dev diary. We got a little bit of a closer look at the lifestyle system, which they've teased a little bit previously. We got kind of more of an idea of like what focuses and perks are going to do, and some new icons. What stuck out to you guys about this dev diary?
It's definitely an advancement over the focus system in CK2, which was something that really helped roleplay in CK2, and this is just more of that.
Right.
I feel it makes it more of a roleplay game than a straight up map painting grand strategy game.
Definitely. Yeah, I think what I'm most excited about is to see all of the new events that are tied to these different lifestyles. Because they've mentioned, I don't know if it's per lifestyle. I don't know if they've said anywhere if it's per lifestyle or per focus. But some of the like way of life events in CK2 were some of my favorite events in the entire game. It's just there weren't enough of them. So, if you did stewardship for multiple generations, you were going to see the same stuff over and over again. Yeah.
And I think it gives a nice variation since not only are you picking your focus, you're picking which part of your focus, like the ones they gave us, the medicine, the scholarship, the theology. And so before in CK2, we've only had two choices. We've had scholarship and we've had theology.
Right.
Here, they're adding another one, medicine, which these give you an immediate bonus, which they covered with us at PDXCon.
Right.
And then after that, you get your XP throughout your lifetime, and you spend that on points on the different trees.
Right. So it seems like there's like one focus per skill that's just like, I want a big flat bonus to this skill, or you can pick smaller bonus to the skill plus some other bonus of some kind, like medicine looks like it gives you a health boost. I'd be curious to see if hunting still does, or if they've moved that onto this skill group specifically. And then theology obviously gives you piety. I used to say piety, but people keep yelling at me for saying piety, so I think I think it's supposed to be piety. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you do say pious, but yeah, it's not something I hear. It's not a word I hear in my everyday life very often. So yeah.
Well, and they also showed us the diplomacy one, which follows sort of the same trend of, for if you open it up larger, since they give us such a full image of it, the diplomacy lifestyle.
Right.
We have the foreign affairs focus, which just gives us straight +3 diplomacy.
Mm-hmm.
Majesty, which gives us +1 diplomacy only, but you get +1 prestige a month, which can be very useful depending on what you're trying to do.
Right. Well, the other thing
the last one is
go for
which
it.
I think is very powerful, is the family focus, which gives us the 2 diplomacy and the bonus to fertility.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was always the opener for me. When I create a custom character, you want to get the babies pumping out as soon as possible, so family focus for the fertility is always like a go-to.
Yeah. The other really interesting thing that was not a part of Way of Life that I noticed is they said that perks can actually unlock new CBs. So like if we look at the diplomat tree here, they have ducal conquest and forced vassalage as two of their perks you can unlock, which is very interesting. It makes me wonder if like Holy Wars might be similar, but locking different CBs behind these skill trees seems like kind of an interesting way to balance between sort of how things were before Jade Dragon, where it was, pretty hard to get CBs against co-religionists, and then after Jade Dragon, where a lot of people, would turn the new CBs off because they felt like it made it too easy to get your CBs against co-religionists. This seems like kind of a good compromise on that to me, where you have to invest points to unlock easier conquests.
And you'll also be focusing with a ruler, so you're playing a ruler that's very focused on declaring war on people through different means.
Right.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering, though, is does this mean that you need this perk right here in order to declare war on other people who own land in your de jure duchy? Which was
possibly. I hadn't thought of that.
Base feature in CK2, or is it something more powerful than that, like you can declare war for an entire duchy at a time? That's what I'd be very interested to find out, because if just declaring de jure wars within your duchy requires a perk, that almost makes it seem like Diplomat's going to be like an automatic go-to for, starting off at least.
Honestly, if the CB is for the ducal conquest as well, like when you fabricate a claim, it's against the entire duchy, that's also going to make it an auto pick for me. If I'm going with a min-max kind of, I'm playing this as a game rather than playing it as a role play, then it's always going to be a pick, because that would be very, very powerful.
Oh, we actually have a developer in chat answering this question for us. So unless you already hold the duchy title, he says you need the ducal conquest perk. So if you're
Which makes sense, because as in CK2, if you hold the duchy title, you can go to war with anyone that should be in that duchy.
Right.
Because you should be their de jure liege.
Okay, so that makes more sense. So it is more of a bonus. It's not giving you back something that, you could already do in CK2 without a perk, which isn't necessarily something I'm hugely opposed to, honestly, is, locking things that were base features in CK2 behind a perk if it really makes sense and makes the game more interesting. But that seemed like something that, that's going to make it really hard to expand as a Christian if if that's how that works. So
one thing I would be interested to know is that, you see, take the middle tree of the one you've got open, August. To take True Ruler, are you going to need both Inspiring Rule and Praetorian Guard, or do you only have to go down one of those sides?
I don't know. That is an interesting question.
You have to go down each side. If you check the pictures they gave us after PDXCon that are up on Steam.
Yep, Minute says you need both.
Lifestyle, where they've actually selected some of the traits, and for strategist, yes, the ones that merge like that, it looks like you have to have all three. And Meneth is confirming in chat that you need both.
Which the closed captioning seems to think Meneth's name is Minute, so that's his new name from now on.
Meneth the Minutes.
Yeah.
Or the minutes.
We need to get all Paradox developer handles added to this dictionary for this CC. If the developers of the closed captioning could get right on that, yeah.
Maybe he could also take the Meneths of the meeting afterwards from us.
Exactly. Let me see. Oh, and
that was an awful pun. I'm so sorry.
We got new trade icons, which if you don't follow me on Twitter, they are in order. Scaffold Master. This is Disciplinarian. We've got Joe Rogan, Boring Person, Resourceful but Incompetent Archer, because that's not going to fly if you put that thing in a bow. Come on, it's curved. We have Secret Handshake Connoisseur. We have Bad at Drawing Trees, Non-Secret Handshake Connoisseur, Messy Treasure Hoard, Weird Etsy Tapestry Addict, Boring Person Bracket Professional, what was this one? Impractical Hat Collector, Cough Syrup Enthusiast, Pet Rock Surgeon, Always Broke Because You Keep Buying Swords, Hopeless Romantic, That Glass Eye Prank Is Getting Really Old, Steven, Jason Statham, Mail protector, beer waster, and high concept cartographer. So those are going to be all of the new lifestyle traits that you can get from in CK3 at this. Some of those.
I want to see that as the NoCB mod day one. That's gotta be in it.
Whatever we thought the icons meant before they were revealed, it just changes all the names to that. Yeah, like I could actually write that mod. Probably that probably wouldn't be difficult.
Do it.
It's just changing localization strings. Yeah. Anything else that stuck out to you guys? Do you guys have a favorite icon? Maybe.
I mean, I got to go with Secret Handshake Connoisseur for the best named one.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if that's like he's greasing a palm or like what that might mean.
No, it's that palm tickle thing with Secret Handshakes. Yeah, and you do the tickle palm. Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. Like I'm digging it. That's
some of these I can actually see the visual pun that they're going for. Like the one in the middle on the right over here. It's like he's trying to get blood from a stone, so that probably is like miserly or something like that. Yeah.
I would think it's more of a medicine one. Like he's done bloodletting, and now he's sharpening the knife.
Could be,
or maybe it's cannibal, and he's sharpening the knife to cut through people.
So you can cut through the bones properly, right?
Yeah, because I'm definitely thinking that second one is the medicine one, because that is a bone saw, right?
Yeah, I mean that could also be torturer. Somebody pointed out in the comments,
true.
But because they said some of these
obvious one is like the hunter,
right? Like some of these they said come from perks, and some of them you have to get other less obvious ways. But
they say some of these are traits, and others are from special events and activities.
Right. The
line between doctor and torturer is quite fine.
Especially with no anesthetic.
I was going back and forth between whether this was supposed to be Vladimir Putin or Jason Statham. I'm pretty sure it's one or the other, but I like Jason.
It's definitely got Putin's face.
Yeah, I like Jason Statham better, so that's why I went with Jason Statham. But,
I would like to point out that just pulling up the old image just from PDXCon, which shows the martial lifestyle and then showing the diplomacy one. They've added things, such as in the diplomacy one, it says up there in the top left, because of your diplomacy education, you gain 30% more experience in this lifestyle.
Okay.
Nothing says how much you get of that here, so maybe this person didn't have the martial lifestyle? I'm not sure.
Or it could have been a really bad martial lifestyle, martial education.
Or they might have just not implemented...
It's supposed to give 10%.
They might not have implemented the education system at the point that we saw in the PDXCon screens, so that could be
Can I recommend one change to your headcanon list of traits?
Sure.
That eyeball, 100%, that's the insomniac trait. I know this because I see that eye very frequently.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, for sure. So that's Crusader Kings 3. We've got two kind of smaller, quicker ones before we dive into the big boy. I think Lambert described it in chat as the Big Chungus dev diary.
It's a door stopper.
It is. So this Imperator one is kind of it's an odd format, compared to the usual dev diaries. It's more discussing plans for the future. The thing that was really interesting about this to me is it seems like they're pivoting away from the idea that the next big patch was going to be like an expansion patch, and now they have two more polishing patches that they're planning, in the meantime, and also great cat pictures. So,
well, possibly 3 if you think about the second season is going to be, warfare. Right. Is that going to be a DLC or, alongside a big patch? Or, I mean, the line between a small patch and, kind of working on it kind of patch. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, he says earlier in the dev diary that he calls Cicero Update a small patch.
Mm-hmm.
And Cicero was, in my opinion, the biggest single patch for any game that they've released ever. Like, it completely reworked the entire game.
Yeah.
And he described it as smaller.
Yeah.
So whether Archimedes and Menander are going to be small, I mean, who can tell? Because I don't think Arheo knows what small is.
Which could be a good thing.
Small is relative.
True.
But it does...
Even Stellaris 2.0, yeah, I would say Cicero is a bigger change than Stellaris 2.0. Stellaris 2.0 would be second place after Cicero.
I mean, I'm trying to think if they've just completely redone the resource system that the entire game is based on before. And I mean, Stellaris added a lot of new ones when they did the planetary management rework that came with, I think it was Megacorp. When they added alloys and stuff, but at the basic level, it's still, energy and minerals are kind of the springs from which everything else flows.
Yeah.
And Cicero completely did away with the spring from which everything else flowed. So
2.0 wasn't the alloys. 2.0 was when they switched from the tile system to the new system of pops.
Yeah.
And they completely got rid of every way to travel except for hyperlanes.
Which was a great change.
Yeah, I agree.
I always played on with hyperlanes.
I would still say that Cicero is a bigger change, personally. Because Stellaris still felt very much like the Stellaris that I'd always played. Mostly because I always played on hyperlanes anyway.
I have to disagree with you there, especially playing with the pops. It was just a very different game.
I mean, it was different. I just think Cicero was bigger.
Yeah.
Cicero was big. I'd say they're almost the same size. I wouldn't exactly put Cicero as bigger.
I wouldn't put much between them.
I'm gonna be a centrist and say that I think both sides have good points here.
Enlightened or filthy centrist? I wonder which one.
So the really interesting thing about this to me is like, I don't know if it's too early to say this, but it does kind of suggest between what's going on with Imperator, still ongoing with Imperator and EU4, that there is some kind of a definite shift in philosophy happening where we're probably going to see maybe more patches and, fewer big DLCs, maybe more flavor packs. But also
that's the way that I think it's going to go.
Yeah, a slowdown of paid content releases in general, as well. With Imperator came out, was it May of last year?
It was the end of April.
Even earlier.
21st of April or something.
And we still don't even have a single paid expansion even announced, which would have been like unthinkable.
And not even a cosmetic one.
Yeah, it would have been unthinkable for a Paradox Development Studio game, 2, 3, 4 years ago.
It has the Hellenistic World Flavor Pack, which is paid.
Right. It's part of the...
We got that with a pre-order, though.
Yeah, I think you can only buy it as part of the Digital Deluxe Edition upgrade at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a fairly small, DLC.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out if there's any way to get a hold of the Epirus flavor pack if you didn't get it when it came out.
I got it a few days ago, actually.
Okay.
I'll let you know after the stream.
Okay, because it doesn't look like it's available to purchase on Steam. So
no, it's not.
I'm confused about what the status of it is. It seems to kind of be in limbo at the moment. But
I'm hoping it's going to be rolled into a future content pack, like a rework, like a flavor pack that focuses on the Greek region. Maybe that could be rolled into that.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Nice.
That would make sense.
But content-wise, they're talking about Archimedes is going to be about expanding religious gameplay options, overhauling omens, allowing hybridization of religions, which is really cool as somebody who, has done a lot of reading on...
That actually sounds a bit like how they're doing religions in CK3.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, in the sort of classical and Hellenistic eras that this time period covers, religion was not nearly as set in stone dogmatic in most parts of the world as it is in, the Middle Ages and later. Gauls would adopt, Italian gods. The Romans adopted Gaulish gods. It was kind of a big melting pot. It wasn't like, oh, well, this god is worshipped in a different part of the world, so clearly they're not worthy of our attention. It was kind of like, oh yeah, you guys have a cool horse god. I think we're down with that. We're just going to import that, and now we have a cool horse god.
It seems like a lot of the religions back then were all of these gods from every different culture that has their own gods. They all exist. We just worship these ones. And your god there is cool. We can worship him too. Like that.
And even inside of that, inside of let's say the Hellenistic religion, different gods had different priorities based on where you lived.
Right. Exactly.
Athena was very important if you lived in Athens. If you were in Sparta,
maybe not so much. Yeah.
Not so much. No.
But I do like the idea that it seems like you are maybe going to be able to swap in and omens and design your own pantheons, kind of decide which gods are important to your particular state, which would be cool.
I'd be down for that.
Yeah, especially because certain culture groups in certain parts of the world are lacking some very useful omen bonuses currently. Whenever I load up a country I haven't played before and I find that they don't have an omen that boosts food, I'm like, oh, this sucks.
I'm really missing the any kind of happiness boost in the Roman omens.
Yeah.
I'd really like some happiness boosting.
You can't just give them bread and circuses?
I mean, I can give them more bread, but no one wants to trade grain with me. I have to do internal trades, and that means I have to conquer you so that then you trade to me under me. So
I wonder why people don't want to trade with the Romans.
Look, we are peaceful people. We are the most peaceful Romans ever. Just be ruled by us, and then we won't kill you.
Yeah,
it's quite simple.
Yeah, just create a wasteland and call it peace. In that sense, you are very peaceful. Yeah.
Exactly.
Where all those villages used to be, there is now peace. Yeah.
There's no unrest in a graveyard.
Right. So yeah, then Menander is going to be the update after that. It's going to rework culture. And then, that's what they're calling season 1. Season 2 is going to be more about warfare. If you each had to have a specific wish as far as these seasons of updates, what would you most like to see come out of Imperator in the next, 6 to 9 months?
Trade rework.
Yeah.
Basically. I think when Imperator came out, a lot of people's problems with it was too many, you click a button, you get a reward. And the game has moved on from then. So now you can't just click a button and move a citizen or click a button and upgrade a freeman. And all of these different areas of the game have moved away from instant rewards apart from trade. And I think that's the next area that needs to be made more fluid and more dynamic.
Rose, what do you want to see?
Well, going on what he's saying, the fact that turning off certain types of trading and turn off trading capital bonuses, but you want to keep that excess food in all your other places, but you can't stop people from asking, oh, I want to trade grain. If you could just select, I don't know, I never want to trade away iron, and you deselect iron, so you never get pop-ups asking if people want to buy your iron.
Well,
which would be part of a trade rework.
Yeah, under Archimedes here, he does say, in addition, we'll be taking some time to rework character loyalty as a more organic system and squashing some oft-requested minor features. And I think that oft-requested minor features, looking at the forums, that trade spam is absolutely what he's probably talking about there.
Yeah, if you've ever played Egypt, everybody wants your grain at all times, and it can get a little bit tiresome.
Well, Rome can't survive at the start of the game without all of its grain. If it trades away one of its grains, it starts to starve.
Oh, no.
And the AI doesn't notice that. They just want that grain. Look, you have that grain. I want that grain.
Yeah.
No.
We're using that grain. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
This is how we feed ourselves.
One little nitpick that's been bothering me for a while, and maybe it's changed in the last patch. I haven't played really recently. But let's say I did a game in Sri Lanka. and we didn't really conquer for a while, but eventually Maria came down and was bordering us. We couldn't talk to Maria because their capital was too far away, even though their troops were standing on our border.
Yeah, John Bolding from Three Moves Ahead played some southern Indian state and had the same problem.
I think that's utterly, I'll just say, I think that's utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, it should be based on distance to closest settlement, not necessarily distance to capital.
Yes, because I remember I had that same problem when I did my first full game as Syracuse, and we became Sicily, and then we did the Alexander Empire.
Okay.
And we had trouble talking to some people in India because they were so far away from Syracuse.
Usually, if you have a border, then it's you count as having access or
that's pretty much
range.
what we had to do, but we couldn't trade with someone because there was one little sliver of county in between. There's also an island that I'm really curious about over in the Red Sea. I think it's the Red Sea. Hold on. I've pulled up images of it. But there's an island that you can't walk to, even though looking up historically, it's across a small river. It's not really out in the sea. What is
interesting?
That? Mm-hmm. The contact distance should count from your borders, not your capital.
So before we move on from Imperator, do you guys have a favorite cat from the Imperator cat corner? Because I know my favorite is probably this one up in the top right, this cat that's actually a tank. That's
I gotta say it's probably on the right hand side, one up from the bottom.
The kind of foxish looking one here.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's a cool one. That's a rad cat. Yeah.
I like the one sleeping down in the bottom left.
And just chilling.
Yeah, just chilling.
Nice. Yeah. So
I don't think it's really a bug Allfrey. Sorry. I complained earlier.
Oh, the island? Yeah, I don't know.
The islands.
Anyway, we got also a very small dev diary for Hearts of Iron 4. It seems like it's like some spring cleaning type stuff, which makes me think that this update is very close. I would not be surprised if they announced a release date next week even. They're kind of going through some smaller quality of life stuff. The MIFO bills for Germany are going to be a little bit easier to manage. They're finally making it so that when you add something to the construction queue, it doesn't go to the bottom of the 50,000 railroads that need to be repaired. Auto stopping for training troops. You can have them stop when they get to max level. Decision notifications, which is a big thing for me. I'm very happy that they're changing how that works. Letting you know when your allies are going to be naval invaded. The one I wasn't quite so sure about is that they're adding kind of a grace period after a civil war is declared, where the AI won't launch their plans yet to kind of give you a chance to prepare. I don't know if I like that yet. I kind of feel like part of the point of a civil war is that the side that initiates kind of has the jump on you a little bit.
It might be because there's certain civil wars where the troops pop in utterly ridiculous places. Like
that's
if you're
probably
playing Japan
why.
And trying to switch to communist, all of your troops start on one of the southern islands, and there's enemy troops between you and your capital. You literally have no troops in Tokyo. None.
Interesting.
Even though you own Tokyo. It's a little ridiculous.
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
And they may not have figured out a way to fix that, so they may be implementing this to sort of balance that, would be my guess.
Got it. But then also the zoomable and searchable focus trees, which we've heard about before, is going to be awesome, especially with how big some of the focus trees they've added recently are, and how big some of the focus trees in some of the best mods are getting. yeah, it's kind of like trying to look at, a map through a bottle cap. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm trying to think of something that has a small hole in it.
Thread of the eye of a needle.
There you go. Trying to look at a map of the world through the eye of a needle is sort of how it feels in the current version of the game to navigate some of these focus trees.
Well, I gotta say that the focus trees look amazing, and it is nice to be able to see all of it. Because I like branches of trees and family trees. I always like looking at as well. So it's sort of the same thing. Being able to see it all is can only be a positive.
Zoomable and searchable family trees in CK3 would be amazing, by the way.
Oh God, yes.
Family tree in Imperator would be awesome too.
Yes.
Yeah. A family tree in Imperator, it feels like they need a whole patch just sort of fleshing out characters, and not just characters, but families.
I think that'll
turn it into Crusader Kings, but make it a more important aspect than it currently is.
I think that'll probably happen eventually. Like, it'll be a big patch that comes along with the DLC or something.
It shouldn't actually be a big one. I was when I was at ParadoxCon. This was right before the mission trees and all that came out. When speaking with Arheo, I mentioned, is it possible to get a family tree at some point? He said the mission tree could be used to make, the family tree relatively easily. Like the system is dynamic enough that it could be used for a family tree. So it could be done.
Yeah.
Maybe. That'd be nice.
Yeah. I'm a character guy, so anything that they do to make Imperator more character-centric will, of course, be cool in my book. So, anything else that stuck out to you guys about this, little list of quality of life changes for Hoi 4?
No, I think
not so much.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's stuff that's like small but also cool.
It definitely feels like the end game now.
Yeah,
like they're building up to release.
Yep.
Yeah.
So definitely excited to check that out. So now we have this textbook that is the.
I need to go put the kettle on.
The dev diary for all of the big EU4 changes. The first and largest of which is that they are finally reworking how states and territories work. I am quite skeptical of this, but I'm sort of the school of thought that EU4, it's more important for it to kind of try to simulate history than it is to cater to hyper-optimization. So I liked not even the current state system, though I think the current state system is very good. I was even fine with the one before that was even more restrictive, because I kind of feel like, part of what this historical simulation is supposed to do is answer the question, why didn't one country conquer the world in this time period? Like, I don't think that world conquest should be absolutely impossible, but I think it should be, virtually impossible. It should be something that, takes an extreme degree of strenuous, optimizing to actually pull off. That being said, I do like that they're changing it from a thing where you have a limited number of states to more of a soft cap, where if you go over the limit, you get penalties. That concept in and of itself, I think, is cool. I don't think the penalties are high enough or meaningful enough to really be a break on your expansion. What do you guys think?
I can only really compare it to my own taxes when I'm looking at, the way that they do states and trying to limit expansion. And it would be awesome if in this sort of rework that they've done, distance from capital would be something that would be added. I would love to see that, but otherwise I'm relatively optimistic about it.
Okay.
Having, your core land, your core territory, and then you have your regular, unstatified territories that are a bit more autonomous, and then having your trade companies outside of that. I think it's probably a good balance if they work it right. And I've got faith in Groogy and Johan. I think they can probably pull it off. I think mostly I'm going to have to test it out for myself.
Right. Well, they've said
feel like
go ahead.
Something that you're going to have to test out. Like reading all of it, it sounds really good. We'll have to see. But
yeah.
You don't really know until you get in and see how it works while you're playing it.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. When I look at these penalties, so if you're 100% over your limit, which is now based on development, and, state development costs, 100% of its development value, territories are 90 and trade companies are now 80, I think is what they said.
Yes.
Or no, trade companies are 50%, territories are 25%. That might have even changed since the last time I read this, unless I'm making things up in my head.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the autonomy for territories is 90 and trade companies is 80.
Okay, those are the numbers I'm thinking of. When I look at these penalties, I mean, plus 50% AE, okay. 100% stability cost modifier, okay. Minus 50 improved relations might as not even be there. Like, if I get big enough that I'm the most powerful nation in the world, I don't even care about that anymore. The only one that seems like it's a really meaningful penalty is the minus 5% administrative efficiency, and that's so small. Like 5% for every 100% you are over the limit. Like, that's so small.
I gotta disagree with you there.
Really?
Stability cost modifier, that is probably what I think is the most painful. It's like playing as a republic with low Republican tradition. That if you lose some stability, it's painful to bring it back up. That's a lot of admin power. So definitely, that's if you hit 100% over the limit,
right? Which they've said this continually scales effectively forever. So if you manage to get to 1,000%, that would mean your stability is now 10 times as expensive.
What I think is it makes more role play sense. As in, you are the government. You're not going to be able to have your tendrils and your fingers in every single pot, and that is what making it a full state is. You're going to have to leave some of your land unstated. They're going to have to be just territories a little bit more autonomous or very autonomous.
Yeah,
because you simply don't have the administrative efficiency to work on it all, and
I like that. Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll have to actually play it to see how I feel about it. I've just been, I don't know. I'm kind of a curmudgeon on the topic of we want to make this game friendlier to world conquest. Has never been a development objective I'm particularly fond of. But I like that other people can play this game a different way from how I play it. I don't, resent their ability to do that at all, if it doesn't come at the expense of making it feel like a rich historical simulation. So yeah, I'll give it a chance. I'm a little bit skeptical, but I conceptually, I will still say I like the idea of making it a malice that is based on how far over the cap you've gone, like how force limit works. I almost always like soft caps better than hard caps. So that conceptually definitely gets a thumbs up from me. The actual numbers themselves, the actual values that they affect, I'm not sure if it's going to feel punishing enough, but I can always mod the game for, optimum masochist mode if I want to. So that's also another, what we talked about last week, include mod support in your games.
Oh yeah. One thing as well that this does is it makes the courthouse something I might actually consider building, because I don't think I've ever built one in the 5,000 hours I have in EU4.
It's going to make it really good for if you take a high dev province in India or something, it'll be like a no-brainer to build a courthouse there now, where it used to be if I have a building slot left in 1801, I might build some courthouses. But
even then, there's something better. There's always something better.
Yeah.
But yeah, just I'll build courthouses now. It just makes it so that it's not the right way isn't always, okay, I've got a state slot, let's state this. That's not always going to be the best option. It makes you, you have to think a bit more about what you're really putting your effort into.
Which is ultimately what grand strategy games force you to do. There's not always going to be a right answer.
Right.
Yeah.
There's just what's going to possibly be the best for you and your goals at this present time.
Indeed.
So they have also another big change that they're rolling out is they've added trade companies to every part of the world. You can make a trade company anywhere that is of a different religious group than your nation. They have to be considered overseas from all of your nations and all of your subject nations, not including tributaries, and they can't be part of the HRE. So they give the example that China could create. They could take London and set it up as a trade company, which is kind of funny to think about.
I know some people are going to do that day one.
Oh, yeah.
Or they're going to take Japan and go over and make trade companies out of the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah, playing China as an expansionist colonial empire is some of the most fun I've had in EU4. So giving them more things to do in that regard is definitely cool. The rules are a little bit weird. They mentioned that they're trying to prevent things like the Mamluks being able to create a trade company in Arabia. So I expect that those will probably change over time to some degree. Yeah, I like making trade companies. I've done Portugal games that are just entirely based on seeing how many trade companies I can build and how big I can make them.
And the money just pours in.
Yes.
I will say there is one big change here to trade companies that I think has flown under the radar.
Yeah.
And that is province religion must be of a different religious group than the owning nation.
Right.
Before, the strategy that I at least used was, I got to convert this first, and then I'll put it in the trade company, because if I don't convert it first, I get like a -5 or -10% missionary strength on it.
Oh, yeah.
Now it has to be of a different religious group.
That is interesting.
Is a huge change, and I haven't seen anyone really talk about it.
Yeah, so that means that, if Congo, converted to Catholicism, that would basically block,
your trade company.
Yeah, Portugal from being able to make a trade company there. Yeah, I don't think the rules are perfect yet. I think they're probably going to see some tweaking before or even after release once people have gotten their hands on them.
It might be the majority of the land in that trade company has to be different.
Well, it says province, and you do add per province.
Okay, so
also,
yeah.
I want to know who makes a trade company in Siberia.
Look,
I'm trying to think who would even be eligible to make a trade company in Siberia. You'd have to conquer
China would, I think. No,
well, no, it doesn't count as overseas.
Asia.
Yeah, so you'd have to. I don't know. You'd have to start as the Iroquois or something.
United States or a colony.
Yeah,
and conquer the world.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see when it's going to make sense to make a trade company versus a territory out in just low dev land like that you only colonized to, get, block somebody 100%. Else. Yeah, so.
Well, Japan could probably make a trade company there, actually, as chat's pointing out.
Does mainland Asia count as overseas for Japan? I actually don't remember what the exact rules for overseas are.
I don't think so, because Japan doesn't get, 50% cost reduction when conquering Korea.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. I don't know who. Well, I mean, maybe the Aztecs. There you go. Aztec trade company in Siberia.
Yeah, any of the North American nations could do it. Yeah, so that's an option. If you did a custom nation that starts in Australia, you could make that work. I did a custom Maori nation in New Zealand one time. That was a really fun game. Although I don't think the Maori actually colonized New Zealand until the 1500s. So that's jumping the gun a little bit. But,
that's fine. I often make Norse colonies and custom nations, and they're all gone. So
yeah,
I mean, it's fine.
I would like a playable Polynesian tag of some kind. Like, it's the only culture in the game, I believe, that does not start... The only culture group in the game that does not start with any playable tags. And it'd be cool to just add one for the heck of it. I mean, if you're going to have these, tiny little migratory tribes in Kamchatka, I'm sure you could, find a historical basis for adding some kind of a Polynesian tag.
was a kingdom.
Yeah, it was.
They were pretty well organized across those islands.
Yeah. So, Polynesian tag. That's on my wish list, and has been for EU4 for quite a while, actually.
You know what I kind of like is when you're making a custom nation, the ability to create a culture. Either for a culture that, either isn't in the game or stopped existing a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Or just a fantasy culture. Just the ability to... Just a text box and let me make my own culture in there. That'd be really cool.
It's very easy to do that with modding if you want me to give you instructions on it.
Yeah, I can do with modding.
Yeah.
But
of culture, though, there is a new culture up there if you look at the map of the trade companies where they've clicked on Cornwall.
Oh yeah, Cornish. Yeah, they have a Cornish culture now. Final, at last, the Cornish get their due, yeah.
Yes.
I wonder if that's going to be in the group with Wales and Ireland and Scotland, or if it's going to be in the British.
Well, currently
culture group.
Welsh is currently in the British culture group, so I would imagine Cornish is too, unless they're going to put those back in the Celtic group.
Well, it is red, so that would imply that it is in the Celtic. It depends.
Interesting.
Because England, if it was British culture group, it would be orange, right?
I don't think it's owned by England right there, though.
True, because England is black flagged in Dorset, so yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Also, it's owned by Qing.
It's owned by China, so whether it's Celtic or British, it's not part of the Chinese culture group.
I mean, if I were in charge of it, I would split them up into, like, Gaelic and Brythonic and like all of these other tiny things. I'm more in the CK3/Imperator camp in terms of how I like to divide up cultures, but yeah.
Let me introduce you to Mayo, Texas.
Okay, sweet. Anyway, they're also redoing a lot of the both naval and ground combat. Most notably, perhaps, is that they're actually adding a disengagement chance for ships, which is going to finally fix the problem where
50 ships.
Yeah, 25 English ships of the line can beat an infinite number of anyone else.
Had that problem in a multiplayer quite recently.
Yeah,
it was really annoying.
Yeah, and apparently, like they explain pretty clearly the reason that they figured out why that was happening, which is pretty funny. Which is basically that ships with zero morale, they don't retreat, but they still take up space on the line. So it's basically like sending ships to their death one at a time. If you can get most of the enemy line to zero morale quickly. It's always funny to me how that, the math of the simulation causes weird stuff like that to happen. That, wasn't intended and wasn't even necessarily foreseeable by the developers. But they've added, I think it's kind of similar to Stellaris, isn't it? How, ships have a chance to disengage.
Imperator also has disengagement.
Okay.
So it only makes sense that EU4 would add that in. It is one of the older games now.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm currently playing as Great Britain in a multiplayer game. So I'm hoping that we wrap that up before this patch comes out, because I like being able to automatically win every naval battle. Especially if it takes place along my coastline and I get the wooden wall bonus.
Britannia rules the waves.
Yeah, because France
they should.
France is quite strong in our MP game, and the only reason I still exist is because they can't get across the channel. But yeah, I think it's a good change. I think pretty much everyone would agree that it's a good change, except maybe the admiral of the British Navy. But
no, the admiral of the British Navy is British. Therefore, he would want a fair fight that he could objectively win from superiority, rather than cheesing it.
Okay, yeah. Fair.
They win
good
with
point.
honor. They don't win with cheese.
Okay.
Cheese is a very French thing.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Well, you're welcome.
All right. So they've also made some changes, which they've dubbed making blockades sexy. I should say when I say they, I am referring to Groogy. I think we discussed this a little bit previously when they showed off some of the new buildings.
Yeah.
Which they've clarified more recently that the 5% attrition from coastal batteries can be negated by taking naval ideas, which makes it a little bit more, I think, not as wacky as I thought it was going to be. But they're also redoing how or what blockades actually do, rather than giving penalties to goods produced, trade power in the province that's being blockaded. You're actually just going to loot it like you would with a land army, essentially. I think it still causes devastation. What do you guys think of that change?
I love the changes to blockades. I think that's fantastic. Making blockades really painful. I mean, that kind of broke countries. It's what Napoleon's plan for Britain was we'll just stop him from trading with everybody, and Britain turned around and blockaded Russia until they were crippled and had to start trading with us again.
It's also how the French helped the Americans win the Revolutionary War. They kept the British from being able to resupply their troops.
Yeah. Also,
it's hard to fight on two fronts across an ocean.
Well, that too, yes.
Meneth points out that the closed captioning renders Groogy as groovy, so they are now Minute and Groovy. They should start their own podcast called the Groovy Minute.
Groogy, baby, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great change for the most part. Now that I kind of understand better how that hostile fleet attrition modifier is going to work, the fact that there is something you can do to fight against it. In my ideal world, I think I would still like to see maybe a way that your ships could fight back against the coastal batteries.
Marines.
Yeah, I mean, and they've clarified that, one of the things Marines are going to do is they're going to be the guys that sit around on your ships because they don't take any attrition. So they can kind of
just... Which is something I mentioned in the previous
Johan
episode.
Is saying that hostile fleets are nullified by maritime ideas.
Yeah, that's what... Yeah, not maritime, naval... Or not naval ideas, maritime ideas. Yeah.
Maritime ideas.
Yeah, so that I think makes it a little bit less of a... if you want to play a play style where you are focusing on blockades as a major way of waging war, then you just want to take maritime ideas. There's no reason you wouldn't, because it's not as viable of a play style if your opponent has the tech to build naval batteries, which at least gives you some time. I mean, Dip Tech 12.
Any attrition, no sailor drain.
Right.
It's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to using these mechanics together with the new trade company mechanics. I'll probably try to do another Portugal run where in Golden Century, I think the goal I set for myself was to make the most money while actually owning the fewest number of overseas provinces I could, which is sort of what Portugal did, with the exception of Brazil. Like, just take all the centers of trade and, hand them over to trade companies. control the world.
Basically, Hanseatic League kind of thing as well, just on a bigger scale.
And then instead of using your development cap, the new development soft cap to conquer more stuff, you just use it to build up development in the Portuguese homeland more and make it the richest country in Europe.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. Johan just said there, Marines are awesome to transfer across seas, as navies and their loaded units now take arrival damage on each sea zone. They've re-added on arrival attrition, which is what I said in the previous episode.
Interesting.
I love that. Yes.
Very interesting. So having an admiral with higher maneuver won't help you as much when you're shipping troops around anymore then. Because it used to be that if you had an admiral with really high maneuver, they could get them there before they took a lot of attrition.
Yeah.
And you want those Marines, especially let's say you're playing Portugal and you're going to have to deal with those native uprisings.
Very
Moving
cool.
your troops across all those ocean squares.
Within supply ranges, no attrition on it.
Okay.
I like those mechanics a lot. That's
so that'll also
nice.
make colonizing places like Iceland, Greenland, Bermuda more meaningful.
Really good.
Yeah, because you can maximize your time in supply
provinces.
range. Yeah, when sailing across, because you're not going to want to just cut across the Atlantic.
Which fits historically, because if they could make port on the way to somewhere, they would, if nothing else, just to restock on fresh water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you'd want to use the prevailing winds. Like the I forget what the winds are called, but there's like the
trade winds. Yeah,
the trade winds. Like there's the clockwise one in the North Atlantic and a counterclockwise one in the South.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And Johan's saying he changed some sea zones to enforce open seas on the Atlantic.
Nice.
Yeah, very interesting. So you can't go. I'm going to go to Portugal's little island chain in there. I only need to go to like Bermuda, and then I can just jump across. You barely see any. I think maybe Brazil had nothing that wasn't coastal. Maybe could you jump from Africa to Brazil without?
No, I mean I think the shortest path was the Canaries to. I want to say the Caribbean. I want to boot up EU4 now to actually see what it is in the current patch. There are some ways to get to the Americas with minimal open sea crossing currently. I don't remember what the shortest path is though. Anyway, any other thoughts?
Don't have hours in EU4 to remember.
Any other thoughts on the naval changes before we look at some of the army stuff?
Good. I like it. Naval was always something that was a little bit neglected in multiplayer games unless you went really hard on it. And now I think it's just going to be a viable play style in general. So, yeah, 100% in favor.
All right. So land warfare, one of the biggest changes, they're adding buildings that take up a manufactory slot that are not manufactories, which I actually think is kind of brilliant, that you have this slot that is, mutually exclusive with everything else that could go in that slot that is just, this is for super buildings. This is for buildings that you can't have more than one of, and you can't have more than one of this type per province. So ramparts give you fort level and defensiveness. Soldier household 750 local manpower, which doubles if it has grain, fish, livestock, or wine. That's going to be nuts.
Very valuable, especially if you're playing a smaller nation.
Yeah. I mean, my Portugal example again, I know I'm going to be building some of those because I'm not going to have a lot of land, so I'm going to have to maximize what I do have.
And that's before modifiers as well.
Yeah.
Like barracks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then they have a version of that for sailors that's, slightly less crazy numbers wise, but since you need fewer sailors than you do actual manpower, still very, very powerful.
And
Excuse me, says Britain.
It's an impressment office, so you're not really recruiting anyone willingly. You're going in and picking them up from the pubs after they've passed out.
Yeah.
So does that mean that Britain?
Way.
Does that mean that Britain can build these impressment officers in the US?
I think you could. I don't know what the calculation is that
after you get independence.
Yeah.
That
there should be there should be a mechanic for that. Hostile like how Megacorps and Stellaris can establish branch offices on planets they don't own. Britain should have a special ability that allows them to build impressment offices in other people's land. That'd be great.
Look, if you don't like it, we can just repaint the White House with soot. Just saying. Oh man, I'm being extra spicy today. Sorry.
That's all right. Hey, I think
we'll just blame it on Loris not being here today.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're outnumbered by Yanks.
He tempers me. Yeah, I'm being outnumbered. Therefore, I have to push it up
defensive.
a bit.
Yeah. It's all right. It's all right. We won in the end, so it's okay. You can make fun of us all you want.
We both lost.
I mean, you could just turn Britain into a pirate republic, embrace the true culture.
Excuse me?
And then steal
Britain,
American sailors that way until we invade and destroy you.
I feel dirty even saying those words together.
The other really cool thing is that Army professionalism can now effectively cut your regiment drill loss in half, which has always been, I don't want to say always, until recently. Imperator has done some tweaks recently that actually made this less of a problem. But I feel like veterancy, I'll even say not just Paradox games, I'll say in like across all grand strategy games, can be something that doesn't feel as meaningful, because if it goes down rapidly when you take losses, it feels like you don't really build up institutional veterancy. It's just something that's useful at the beginning of a war and not really something you maintain, throughout a war. So I definitely like that we're going to be able to limit the drill loss.
It was good on cannons.
Yeah.
Cannons didn't take any losses, so what I would do is you drill your cannon so they got full max drill, and then the front line is just layer upon layer of mercenaries. I don't really care about, because they're mercenaries, which are changing as well to something much better.
Right.
And so, your cannons aren't going to lose drill because they're not losing men. They're just sitting back, firing, it's great.
That's actually brilliant. I'd never thought of that before.
Mm-hmm.
I actually stole this tactic from Flurry Worry from not this year's, but last year's Grandest Lan.
Ah, yeah.
He did it as Italy, and I was like, "Oh, that's a bloody good idea," and I used it, and it was indeed a bloody good idea.
Oh, we gotta get Flurry on here at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's on the list of potential guests already. They've together with the mercenary changes they've already announced, these are going to make drill and manpower more of a thing for more of the game, which I think is cool. You can still merc spam if you take the right ideas, but it's not something that's going to be like the default best choice for everybody, which I think is a very kind of sensible compromise, similar to the blockade stuff. Any other thoughts on the land warfare changes before we move on?
Maybe just it's more good changes. I mean, pretty much all the dev diary so far has been, I like this. I like this. I like this. It's just a book of awesome.
It's. I mean, I mentioned my skepticism about the new state mechanics, but most of this reading through, I was like, oh yeah, that's great. Oh yeah, sweet. Oh yeah, I'm gonna love that. Yeah, this is kind of a bounty of nice changes here.
They're giving everyone Christmas a month later.
Yeah, exactly.
Paradox stole Santa's little red hat.
Oh, it's on. Well, I know where it went. It's on this pirate cat from the Imperator.
So it is.
Dev diary. Yeah, it's right. That's where it is. I'm sorry to narc on you guys to Santa, but I think pirate cat will be okay. I don't think Santa will ever find him. He seems like a sneaky.
I recognize the pirate cat. I can't think of where, but that drawing is so familiar.
It does look really familiar. Like, why does the idea of a cat with an eye patch ring a bell for me?
Even just the shape of the face, it just looks familiar. Where is it from? Oh.
I don't know. Somebody in chat will probably figure it out.
Yeah.
But so the last the appendix A through F of this dev diary is the vast amount of changes that they've made to national or government reforms. They've added a lot of stuff new for theocracies, particularly. I like this one a lot. The mission to civilize with the -50 native uprising chance and +35 native assimilation, which they pointed out you can combine with the native trade policy to make it so you basically don't need to station troops in your colonies. That's going to be really cool. They've the mission on the high seas for if you want to be like a naval crusading nation. Eastern nations can invite warrior monks into their government for extra infantry ability and discipline, which is awesome. You can even form a republican theocracy, which seems like some mental gymnastics to me. I don't know how they would just...
Doesn't seem like it to me.
Really?
No, it doesn't. No, I can think of a few countries that sort of fit that nowadays.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the Pope is technically elected.
Yeah.
So
that would be one.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of,
just from a very small group of people.
Yeah.
If it's elected from a small group, it's still an election.
Yeah. And I think they even added ways for theocracies to get faction or parliament mechanics too. I forget what the reform is called.
I did see something like that as well.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Control F for parliament.
There's a lot.
Have you got a favorite from what's been shown here? Because I do. There's one that I really like.
What is your favorite new one?
The Global Crusade. Among other things, firstly, Great Holy Wars, which is something that I'm sure you can appreciate as well. But if you release a nation during your Great Holy War, they are released as your religion. That is so powerful.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how strong that's going to be in the HRE. Like,
I'm just thinking of, going to war with the Ottomans, and they've managed to convert a grand swath of territory to Sunni, and you're like, no, that's all that bit there. That's a new Catholic country, and that's a new Catholic country there, and that's a new Catholic country there, and Jerusalem exists. It's a Catholic country.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you would have to station some troops in the area for a while after that to stop the uprisings. If you're
most likely,
yeah.
But that's what the Crusader kingdoms were all about. That's why they stayed there.
And that actually, this is interesting because I don't think I've seen this in a government reform before, that it changes what it does based on your previous reforms. So if you took Mission to Civilize, you get the CB on non-bordering pagans. If you took Deus Vult, you get it on any non-bordering nations.
Naturally, you would want to take Deus Vult then.
Yeah.
Right.
But a negative 40% for cost of enforcing religion. That's usually obstructively expensive on anything other than, HRE minors. But now, one of the examples there is, converting the Ottomans to Reformed.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That is pretty crazy.
I love it.
Yeah.
Apparently the one for parliamentarism is Crusader State.
Okay.
Apparently it's at the bottom somewhere.
Let's see.
At the bottom of the list.
Control F.
The final list.
The very long list.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
It feels like a reference sheet you would use when you decide where you're going to play or how you're going to play once you have the game, more than...
So it's theocratic democracy for non-monastic orders, and it's called regionally elected commanders for monastic orders. That's the one I was thinking of. And then protectorate parliament is a new one for... Is it for merchant republics? I don't know. Some of these, it doesn't actually say how you unlock them. But yeah, Rose, did you have a favorite that stood out of the new government reforms?
Honestly, when I play, I tend to like colonizing a lot, so I do like the whole mission to civilize.
Yeah.
Because it lets you have your troops free to do something else.
Right.
But aside from that, I'm not as huge of an EU4 player as I think you two are.
Got it. Yeah, I love that they've added a Republican version of the Prussian monarchy. I do love my Prussian monarchy.
It is quite nice.
Yeah, all the new imperial government types. It looks like they've added like 3 or 4 per tier for revolutionary nations. Not imperial government types, revolutionary government types, which include empires, but not necessarily. So yeah, playing as the revolution target, whereas other, revolutionary nations, it looks like they're going to have a lot of new interesting decisions what path to go down. Let's see.
As well, some of the new ones there are, your generals becoming rulers.
Right.
And that
admirals.
Is really good.
Yeah.
I want to just really focus on getting as much military. It's not military experience. What is an EU4? Completely forgotten. That makes you get better generals.
Oh, army tradition.
Army tradition. That's the one.
Yeah.
Completely blanked. Just try and get as much army tradition as possible, so your generals are the absolute best they can possibly be. And they're now a ruler. There's your 666. Like, if that's how it works, the new strategy is born.
Yeah, exactly. That would be awesome. That almost might be too broken, but yeah, I love.
It's probably going to be 6 military skill at least if you have an amazing general.
I love that they're removing the restriction. There are reforms that remove the tier 1 restriction for theocracies, so you don't have to secularize. Yeah, you don't have to secularize to become a kingdom. Dynastic order, letting you have royal marriages as a holy order. That's going to open up some really interesting stuff with like the Teutonic Order, and there's just so much good stuff. They've even added some. You were speaking earlier about custom Norse nations. They've added some reforms that are for pagan theocracies only. Priestly autonomy, proclaim religious head, and even one that is specific to Tengri theocracies that gives you even more cavalry to infantry ratio and cavalry combat ability.
If you didn't have enough horses.
Right.
I know a friend who is very much into his hordes, and he is going to break that.
Oh yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna try like a Tengri theocracy as like the Oirats or something as one of my first. Gosh, there's so many games I want to do when this patch comes out. That's the problem with every EU4 patch. Yeah, and
apparently there's 69 new government reforms.
Nice.
All
right.
Nice.
Well. We had a lot to talk about. We didn't really have a main topic this episode just because this dev diary was so long that it kind of was our main topic. But is there anything else related to this this grimoire that you guys wanted to bring up before we call it a day for this episode?
I did actually want to point out that dev diary was 5,090 words.
Wow.
That's more than that's like 2 chapters of a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like
including pictures, just putting it into Google Docs, it's 36 pages.
That's crazy.
Groogy, you madman.
Beautiful madman.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, especially because if you follow Groogy's Twitter, you know that he didn't have it finished the night before. So he finished this and got it up within a few hours when he got to work.
Wow.
Agamade just pointed out something great as well. Johan tweeted about new rules in the options menu. You'll be able to disable end tag restrictions, which is something really good as well. Because that's a mod that removing the end game tags is a mod that a lot of multiplayer communities use because end tags were so yeah, removing that in just in the rules is a great change as well.
To those of us that don't play a lot of EU4, explain end tags. please.
So, for example, if you form a nation that is an end game tag, even if you culture shift your country to something else, you won't be able to form another country. So it removed a lot of the really fun, gamey, I'm going to become Lithuania into Georgia, into Byzantium, into Ottomans, into this, into that, into this. That was an awful lot of fun to watch those kind of, like, how
Things
are they
happen.
doing this?
It removed a lot of the open-ended fun that we get from the Paradox games.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
so,
it's something. As somebody who's like a historical RP immersion player, I'll probably leave it turned off, but I'm always happy that they add options for people to play how they want to play.
Yeah. CK2 being the granddaddy of, like, how it should be done.
Right.
Yep.
All right. Well, man, that was just a dev diary extravaganza. Before we get out of here, Rose, do you have anything to plug? Where can people find your stuff?
I'm on Enigmatic Rose 4. We did a Succession game this morning of CK2 that ended horribly.
How horribly?
I was a king, died of the Great Pox after 6 years, got one sister wife killed. The other sister wife started by being sent to China when I had taken over. I'm gonna have to see what the next person does with that game. Because we lost the kingdom when I died too.
Yeah. Lambert, where can people find your stuff and what have you been up to lately?
I'm Lambert2191 over on YouTube and on DLive at the moment. I'm playing quite a lot of Imperator, doing a couple of achievement runs in that game, and also a few multiplayer games that are going quite well.
Fantastic. As always, I'm AsaTJ on Twitter. That's ASATJ. The Lore Sworn Order is my YouTube and Twitch channel, which are going to be more active soon. I always say that. And then like people are like, you shouldn't promise stuff until it's ready to go. So I won't even talk about it until we have stuff ready to actually announce that, hey, it's up.
Do you have one more thing for us to bring up? We've had a couple people ask in chat. There was a dev diary today about the Stellaris Galaxy Command mobile game.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. I think
linked it in the Discord.
Okay.
Yep, there's a link in the Discord.
Yeah, I mean, that's not something that I have a lot of personal interest in, but I will leave it up to you, the audience. If you want us to cover the mobile game, I'm definitely open to doing that. Loris isn't a huge, or Lambert isn't a huge Hoi 4 person. Rose isn't a huge EU 4 person. We still talk about them, so my personal interest shouldn't necessarily dictate whether we do or don't cover it. So let us know. Here on Twitter, wherever. We're on SoundCloud, we're on iTunes, we're on Spotify. NoCB Cast is our handle pretty much everywhere. Mm-hmm. So if you want us to cover stuff like Stellaris Console Edition and Galaxy Command, let us know.
Apparently the closed caption said, I'm awesome, TJ.
Oh man, it's reading my brain now.
I will
as
add
if he didn't have a big
Galaxy Command. One of the biggest issues they did have that people had with it, quite rightly so, was the art.
Yeah.
Right. There was the whole...
That is the first thing on their list that they said are changes, is the art.
Yeah, so. Which, I mean, that's cool. I like that they're doing the right thing with that. Supposedly it's more that, mobile games aren't necessarily my thing.
They're not really mine either. I usually play, if I play a mobile game, it's typically a board game that's on mobile.
Yeah, but again, if people want us to cover it, you're the listeners. You're ultimately the people that are the reason that the show exists. Somewhere down the line, if and when we launch a Patreon, you might be the people making sure that the show continues to exist. So, yeah, let us know. Give us your thoughts. I think that's going to do it for this week, and we'll see you guys back here Wednesday for the live version, or every Thursday if you are listening on any other platform.
All right. See you later,
Bye,
guys.
guys.
Bye.